Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, College Park City Council votes to allow non-U.S. citizens the right to vote in city elections. Or did they? Governor Hogan wants to widen I-270. Cheap election ploy or pathway to victory? Baltimore, Prince George's County, and Montgomery all want Amazon to locate their second headquarters here. Which jurisdiction has the best chance? And there's a flock of politicians announcing that they're running for office. Who are the contenders and who are the pretenders? Stay tuned. Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by former Majority Leader of the Maryland House of Delegates, John Hurson. Maryland's Secretary of the Republican Central Committee, Mark Uncapher. Young Republican entrepreneur, Evan Young. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. There's much debate about the College Park City Council effort to allow non-citizens the right to vote. Unlike other jurisdictions, the national prominence of College Park and the proximity to the nation's capital gave the passage or the defeat of the ordinance additional significance. Poised to become the 11th jurisdiction in Maryland to allow non-citizens the right to vote, the planned transformative initiative ran into a slight problem. The City Council announced the bill had passed before the parliamentarian could rule on the constitutionality of the vote, and aw shucks, wouldn't you know, it takes a supermajority of 6 affirmative votes to amend the city charter, not just 4. Mark, as noted in the opening read, 10 other municipalities around the state allow non-citizens the right to vote in local election. Why did the College Park action carry such significance?
Well, I think if we think about the last year, we've had a hue and cry over the prospect that a foreign country, Russia, influenced our national election. So here we have local jurisdictions saying, we're okay if Russian citizens vote in our local election. It's crazy. Elections should be for citizens only.
But why the significance of College Park? I mean, when other jurisdictions like Takoma Park and others went and allowed citizens to vote, non-U.S. citizens the right to vote, there wasn't so much a hue and cry over it.
Well, it does get some attention. I mean, there's a couple, I think, Martin said, I mean, there's a bunch of smaller jurisdictions. I think people know College Park, and it's of a particular size, and that's gotten more attention.
Well, could it be that because this was really aimed at the national scene and trying to set a statement in the national scene as well, that along with the immigration issues that we're talking about?
I'm sure that's the case. I mean, there's probably this great divide issue between sort of national and world, global, and that's part of the collision that's taking place in politics today. And certainly the College Park vote is an expression of that change or that collision.
So, John, what's the sense that you have that, I mean, is this a trend that we're going to continue to see, and is it a good thing or a bad thing to allow non-U.S. citizens the right to vote?
Well, first of all, I would say that Takoma Park is unique in so many ways. I mean, it's an extremely liberal jurisdiction, which they're very proud of. It's a nuclear-free zone.
But this is College Park.
But the point in College Park. But the point of it is that they're trying to be inclusive, and I think that's not a bad thing. I think the question is how you go about it. It's got to be local elections. It can't be, statewide elections in any way. But this is a local community saying how they want to integrate their population together. So I don't have a problem with it.
If the non-citizens that are being allowed to vote are here illegally, aren't we just allowing a criminal class to determine what goes on in our communities?
I'm not sure that you're worried about something that's real. I mean, and I think it's best for the local community to kind of make that decision.
Okay.
So.
Well, we've only got a minute left. Evan, I'll let you weigh in on this topic as well.
It's a terrible idea. First of all, the individuals that passed this or didn't pass this in College Park didn't even know the rules for their voting on their own ordinance, so I don't trust them to decide who else should be voting. They don't even know their own voting rules. But also, there are certain privileges that come with American citizenship. One of those is the right to vote. I think it's a very sacred thing, a very important thing. And by College Park, if they were to in the future allow non-citizens to vote, what about the College Park residents that spent years trying to obtain citizenship just so they can vote? You just told them, well, all that work and time and money spent, worthless because you should have just waited.
Well, you're going to have the last word on that because we're going to go on to our next topic. Maryland Republican Governor Larry Hogan proposed a $9 billion project to widen Interstates 495, 270, and take over the Baltimore-Washington Parkway. The plan would add 4 lanes to I-495, would widen I-270 to 4 lanes all the way to Frederick, and widen the BW Parkway. But more importantly, it would also take control of the BW Parkway away from the Park Service. Evan, with residents stuck in traffic each day, won't it be hard for members of the legislature to oppose the governor's plan?
With the timing of this, since many of them are either running against him for the next year or supporting someone running against him for the next year, I don't think it'll be hard for them to oppose it. Smart to oppose it? No. But here locally, at least, they've already proved that they're out of touch when it comes to the transportation needs of citizens. So they can oppose it, but the fact remains that DC area, we're growing at twice the national average when it comes to population. The infrastructure already can't handle the amount of cars, and you can't turn to Metro because that's unreliable too. So they can oppose it, but it is needed, and it's a great plan by Governor Hogan.
Mark, was this a cheap ploy like we've seen from other politicians pandering for votes, or is it a pathway to re-election for Governor Hogan?
Well, one thing you can't say about it is that it's cheap, because it's $9 billion. This reflects an expression of transportation priorities that will span many, many years. It'll take a long time. You can't do it all at once. But I think that it's important to have that kind of global or that broad look to be able to put all the pieces together for transportation. And I think it's an exciting alternative, exciting potential for us.
John, now you've heard Evan say that locally we haven't always supported transportation projects. Will the Montgomery County delegation support Governor Hogan's plans?
I think they will. I mean, I don't see any reason for them not to. I mean, we all hate construction when it takes place. I mean, it's kind of mind-boggling to add 4 lanes to 270, and you know, so we're all like a little verklempt about the idea of having all that construction. But frankly, we need it. So I'd be kind of surprised if this goes down in a way that, you know, a D versus R kind of debate. I mean, maybe I'm naive about the general election with Republicans and Democrats and governor candidates, but I don't see this as a long-term D versus R kind of debate.
But, I mean, I can't imagine the General Assembly would want to give a major victory, though, to Governor Hogan going into this election cycle.
I can't see the General Assembly, which is controlled by Democrats,
right,
taking upon themselves say, no, we don't want to help transportation issues in the state. I don't think that's smart on their part. They should, you know, recognize that, you know, Hogan has done something important here, which is to advance the transportation agenda in a way that's not expensive. My initial impressions of this are it would be foolish for Democrats to kind of oppose this. There are issues related to it that you have to deal with, like the toll lanes and how that works and the privatization of these roads. That's all very important, and unions may have a say in that. But the bottom line is improving transportation. Bottom line, I think that should be a Democratic as well as a Republican issue.
Mark, Paris Glendenny was elected governor twice in support of the ICC, and he studied it to death. Right. Are we likely to see this being studied to death?
Hopefully not. I mean, this will take a long time. Let's be clear. This is the bulldozers are not going to be out between now and Election Day. But I mean, I agree with John. When transportation has been successful in Maryland, it has been a bipartisan effort. Yeah. We wouldn't have had we had ICC. Bob Ehrlich certainly had a lot to do with it, but then so did Doug Duncan. So right. there are folks on both sides. That's how we're going to go forward.
I hope I'm wrong. When it came to the Potomac River crossing, proposed second crossing, 68% of Montgomery County was polled in favor of it. County Council refused to even study if it was feasible. I hope I'm completely wrong in this and everyone comes together and realizes that it is a good thing. I just, at least in Montgomery County, don't see them hopping on board with Governor Hogan.
A second crossing across the Potomac is not the same thing as toll roads on 270.
But they wouldn't even study.
They are different.
They wouldn't even study.
They are different issues.
They are.
But John, the reality is we do not have a good record of constructing transportation policies over the last 30 years in Montgomery.
ICC as the exception. I would say we expanded 270. There's been improvements on the Beltway. Look, I agree with you.
You're going to have the last word on that, and I'll believe you. When we come back from this short break, Amazon announces that it's scouting out a location for a second headquarters. What are the chances that they will choose Maryland? Stay tuned and find out. And welcome back. 2 weeks ago, Seattle-based economic powerhouse Amazon announced that it was looking for a second headquarter location, which set off a nationwide scramble to woo the company. Amazon's criteria are that the site be in a major metropolitan area, that it be within 30 minutes of a city, 45 minutes of an international airport. It also seeks on-site access to mass transit and a proximity to a major highway. John, the potential enormity of the Amazon project is mind-boggling. They are projecting that a workforce of 50,000 people be housed in this one site. That is 10 times larger than the Marriott headquarters building being constructed in downtown Bethesda. This is akin to a military base, not a corporate headquarters. What are the chances of Maryland landing Amazon?
Well, I'd like to think they're good. It may not be Maryland. It may be the Washington, D.C. area, which I think is the right way to go. One of the things I'm concerned about in all of this scrambling, jurisdiction-wise, is that we're not coordinated. So we've got Montgomery County saying it's got to be here, and we got Prince George's County saying it's got to be there, and we got Baltimore saying it's got to be there. That's the absolute wrong approach. There needs to be some leadership in this state that coordinates all of the presentation to Amazon. That's how it's going to happen, and it's actually got to be regional. I mean, it's got to be some kind of presentation that Washington, D.C. does, which we don't do great. This is time for some leadership. The governors of the two states, the mayor, need to come together, figure out a plan.
Well, in addition to the criteria that I read off, it did state that they wanted a regional proposal. They didn't want a jurisdictional multiple approach. They wanted a single approach.
And I'm worried already. You've got county council people and the county executive, frankly. I have a lot of respect for Ike, but you cannot do this like Montgomery County versus Prince George's versus the city.
Well,
it's a big mistake.
That was a show. He just wanted to show.
I know.
Because Rashawn Baker was coming out, he had to do the same thing. Mark, it's predicted that the normal growth in traffic over the next 20 years will double the number of cars in the Beltway. Can the area absorb a project that is this mammoth without grinding the economy to a halt?
Well, this is precisely the sort of thing that our economy does need, because it takes us away from being so dependent upon government jobs and government contractor jobs, and it helps diversify our economy, and that's why it's so strategically important. I think one of the, how shall I say, hidden secrets in this whole process is there's a sort of law in real estate that when corporate headquarters move, they invariably move closer to where the CEO lives. And the good news for us is that Jeff Bezos, who of course personally owns the Washington Post, has bought a house, a rather expensive house in Washington, D.C. And so I think the regional issue, whether it's Maryland, Virginia, or however, even possibly D.C., it's very likely that we in the D.C., Washington area have a great chance of landing this.
Well, you paint a rosy picture there, Mark. That's really wonderful. Evan, you're in investment planning. So what do you think the investment dollars are? Are they going to support Amazon coming to this area or not?
If a plan could come together where, the Maryland governor, Virginia governor, DC mayor all come together to put together a real package for Amazon to entice them to come here. I think we could have the resources and have the land necessary. That's a big thing. I mean, bigger than the Marriott headquarters. That's one question: is where is this going to go?
And I would add the Baltimore mayor.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I don't think this comes together unless you really have a regional plan that involves Baltimore, Washington, Northern Virginia
And
together.
I'd love to see it in Baltimore, just because they're 6% unemployment, still 2 points higher than the rest of Maryland. 50,000 jobs could be landing in Baltimore when this headquarters opens, and they have a program where if you're an employee for Amazon for a year, they'll pay for 95% of a certificate or a 2-year degree course. That could change generations of lives in Baltimore.
Yep.
That's an excellent point. Well, it's going to be fascinating to see the scramble, because nothing makes politicians more eager to participate than the idea of a major corporate relocation.
And can I add one other thing?
Yes, you can.
Stop the idea of bribing Amazon to be here. They're not going to take tax deductions and stuff like that. That's not their criteria.
They have more money.
Correct. They have more money than the states. So don't even start with that.
All right, so this is the last of our segments, but it's also the most fun of our segments. The number of politicians who think they are the answer to our prayers grows weekly. Among the ranks are Majority Leader Bill Frick, running for county executive, Ana Sol Gutierrez, running to replace Roger Berliner, and Baltimore County Executive Kevin Kamenetz, running for governor. So, what are we looking at? John, focusing on the county executive race, does the addition of Frick change the dynamics of the race, and are there any additional candidates that are waiting to announce?
So number one, no one knows what this race is going to look like until the filing deadline, which is February. I don't think the full number of candidates is out there yet. There are other names floating around for county executive, including Cheryl Kagan, the state senator from Rockville. So I don't think the slate is out there yet. I don't think Bill Frick's name changes the dynamics unless the filing deadline were today, which would be, he would be the outside candidate, which I think with 3 current county council members who are term limited running for the county executive, I think the one sole person running against them is going to look pretty good. But I don't think the slate's finished. I don't think the field is finished. I think there's a lot of time between now and February.
Mark, I'm going to ask you about some other races, but right now there's only one Republican announced for county executive. Is there going to be another?
It's possible, although I think there will be more candidates. I think much of the focus is going to be in the districts where Larry Hogan did well. District 15 and District 14 are areas where Republicans will be paying attention. And among the county council, we now have a primary in the up-county district. That's the one that Craig Rice has. Nancy Dasik used to represent, and there's certainly a lot of interest in that particular seat.
So what other candidates are possibly running in the at-large elections for the Republicans?
The at-large is a tough one, because for a Republican, there's a tendency, looking at the numbers over the last couple of turns. My wife did it, I think, 2 cycles ago, for a very much of a party line vote. So it's hard to break out. It's also hard to be running against 4 people when you're, as opposed to one particular candidate. So at-large tends to be the harder one for Republicans to run for. Although I'm kind of curious, John, do you have any particular favoritism for Frick because he was majority leader in the House of Delegates? Do you look at him with that much more sympathy because you held that position?
Well, I do have sympathy for people who have held that position, but Bill was majority leader for a year. I was majority leader for 8 years. So I had 8 times what he had to deal with.
Not as amused as you were?
Yeah. No, I do think there's an advantage for people who understand state government. The current other candidates in the race don't have a real good grasp of how to get money out of the state, how to get money out of the federal government. I think that's important in a county that is, not exactly at the low level of taxes. So, I mean, I think that Bill's experience at the state level will be helpful. but he only had kind of a year of it.
He's only 1/8 of what you've got.
So,
I don't think he'd appreciate that.
I'm sure he wouldn't.
So, Evan, what are the races that you're most interested in? I mean, obviously, the race for governor is of particular importance for you, and hoping that Larry Hogan gets reelected. Does Kevin Kamenitz's candidacy change anything in the dynamics?
You know, what I hope it does is, with 8 or 9 now in the Democrat primary, and probably more to come before the deadline, they'll be pushing each other further and further left, trying to claim who's the most progressive and who should be their nominee. Then have to turn around and run against a wildly popular governor with a 70% approval rating. I see it as a losing formula, and I hope that's exactly how it plays out in his home county, Baltimore County. He wouldn't even be safe there against Larry Hogan. Hogan took 59% in his election in 2014, the same amount that Kamenetz won in his home district with, or in his home county with.
But you know, Hogan's election 4 or 3 years ago was against a very weak candidate, or was perceived to be a weak candidate.
Are any of these strong? I mean.
Well, but there's also the likelihood that there'll be a better Democratic turnout in 2018 because, one, they want to get the governor's mansion back, and two, they just feel like they own that seat.
Well, they're in for another very disappointing night in November 2018.
We're going to hold you to that. That's a prediction. Stay tuned for Party Shots. And welcome back. Now with Parting Shots, Evan Young.
So as we were just talking about, Kevin Kamenetz running for governor now, but I don't think he knows who he's running against. In his announcement, he said we have to take back our state from Donald Trump, Paul Ryan, and Jeff Sessions. What that translates to is the federal government has too much power and too much control over the state, and we need to take it back. That would have got a standing ovation at a Tea Party rally in 2009. So I'm glad to see that less than a year into the Trump presidency, Democrats are all of a sudden becoming small government conservatives.
That's one way of looking at it. Evan, Mark Uncapher, your Party Shot.
That is Evan's side, and he's story, and he's sticking to it. To see the future of Maryland's transportation, one of the ways you could do it is to drive over to Virginia and drive along the Beltway and see the way the hot lanes work. It's a choice that drivers have, motorists have. If you're in a hurry, you can move into a lane that goes a little faster, or you can not pay and go off to the side. Really, it's up to the driver, it's up to the individual to choose, and I think that makes a lot of sense. So if you haven't seen it, or if you haven't thought about it, that's what the future is for Maryland.
Mark, you could even find hot lanes in Baltimore.
And Baltimore, north of Baltimore
North
on
of
95.
Baltimore. You don't have to go to Virginia, you can go to Baltimore. John, your Parting Shot.
I just want to do two. One is to do a shout out for all the rescue workers in Houston and Puerto Rico and Florida, the Keys. I mean, these people have really put themselves out to try to help their fellow citizens, and I think that's something that can bring the whole country together to see that kind of activity. So I think it's important to shout that out. We've had a tough hurricane season in this country, and I just want to emphasize that. Second thing I want to shout out is anybody who wants to run, you should get out there. You should run. This is the year to do it. I mean, there's lots of movement. People are running for different things. There are open seats everywhere. Do it. If you ever thought about it, do it now.
Thank you, John, and thank you, panel, for being here. Thank the audience for tuning in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show. For 21 this week, I'm Casey Hogan.